Hey everyone, and welcome to this video on the Two of Wands. I'm going to start by looking at its divinatory meanings, both in its upright and reverse aspects. And then the bulk of the video is for those of you that want to look at the card in far more detail in terms of its symbology, its astrology, its position on the tree of life, and all those things for which the divinatory meanings arise from. So they don't just spring out of nowhere, they do actually relate to the symbology of the card. And in the final bit of the video, I'm going to go back to divination and look at how the Two of Wands is associated with the various different positions of the Celtic Cross. So we move quickly on to the first section. Okay, this section looks at the divinatory meanings of the Two of Wands, and we'll look at it in its upright position with the arrowheads pointing downwards here. I'm going to also cross-reference to the Two of Wands of the Rider-Waite deck. They're pretty much the same thing, only with the Thoth deck here, you're looking at more just the raw energy of Mars in Aries. But the Rider-Waite card is useful because it shows more the application of that energy within a picture. But I won't go into this in detail, it's really just cross-referencing. So for the upright meanings for the Two of Wands, we can say it's planning a path forward in your life. If you've seen the video for the Ace of Wands, you'll know that that is all about potential, because the Ace of Wands resides in Keta, which is the purest, the potential, the undivided spiritual aspect on the top of the tree of life. And that potential has now become a direction. So this card indicates the need to make a plan for the future to achieve success. So it's tapping into that inspiration that you have to actually formulate it into a plan. It'll become clear as we go along. It's stepping out of your comfort zone and place of security in order to progress your life to the next phase and next set of experiences. So this is all about movement, this card, with Mars, again, very energetic. Aries here, again, we've got two pretty fiery energies there coming together. So it's moving away from that which we feel comfortable, but we have to do that in order to progress and to move our life onto a new phase. The urge to discover that there is more to life than you currently know. So this follows on from part 2 here. The card indicates that it's not a random process, but that in order to move forward, you have to make ideas concrete by turning that inspiration from the Ace into specific goals and writing them down to action and make them more conscious. And this is where really the Rider-Waite card comes in, because he's holding this globe here. He's actually got something physical in his hands. His consciousness is separated from that, so you can see that he's actually taking the time to formulate his world. And although he's still on a place of safety here, which is the castle, so his feet are still firmly planted on ground that he knows, but he is then moving forward and making something far more tangible. He's doing something with that inspiration. And that's really a big part of this card. It's following your inspiration, what inspires you. It's no use following a plan which does not inspire you. That's more associated with the reverse meaning of the card. Travel, career changes, a change in direction. You have an idea of what you want, and you have the world in your hands. Again, that relates to the globe of the Rider-Waite card, and it's shaping that to your or through your actions. So again, travel, again, we've got this notion of direction with these thunderbolts here. You may need to take a situation by the put Cruff there. Cruffs has nothing to do with dogs, so I'll change that in the notes. Scruff of the neck it should be, which might be challenging with lots of changes, but there will be a more positive and balanced outcome. So this is actually a very important part of the card. This high energy of the card, which is associated with Mars in Aries, it's causing a lot of disruption. It's like going into a situation or a job or a relationship or something. It's needing a lot of time, and there may be a lot of stagnation there. And so you're going into a situation where initially there's going to be a lot of disruption, but it will clear the way for a more peaceful way of living. And you can see that in the card here without going too much into the symbology. You've got the blue coming through, greeny blue coming through here, and you've got all this energy being pushed aside, so it's creating like a stable environment for yourself. And that's it for the upright meanings. Another big thing about this card with Dominion that is often overlooked is that essentially these cards are talking about harmony, they're twos, they're duality. So this is about with Dominion, it's about the harmony of rule. And rulership is first an internal process. It's rulership over yourself. And that's really how the tarot deck comes alive. It's all about an internal path. So it's about changing yourself first to change your external environment. Okay, we'll move on to the reversed meanings of the Two of Wands. We'll now quickly look at the reversed meanings of the Two of Wands, and as we can see here, the arrowheads are now pointing upwards. We've got the glyph of Mars at the bottom and Aries at the top. So some of the reversed meanings are basically not planning for your future, and therefore you don't have a clear view of your way ahead. So you're going to need to slow down and organise your thoughts and write down what inspires you. That's going back to the Ace, and turn that into a practical plan of action, which again refers back to the globe here in the Two of Wands. It could mean that you've got ideas for the future, but you've not really made those dreams into a goal. The difference between a dream and a goal is a dream is really just an inspiration. A goal is something that is actually measured, that perhaps you've written down, and so it's actually a measured goal that's attainable. Sticking with familiar territory, you can see that there's much more to explore and experience in the world, but your feet are firmly planted in the safety of what you know. So it's not really even making a plan, it's just staying within the confines of the castle and not really putting much effort into this plan as a means of going forward. You may have plans but not really have connected with that desire to bring them into fruition there. So all along you know that you're going to stay where you are and stay with your feet planted firmly in familiar territory. Losing your passion and inspiration to achieving what you want in the world, or a goal that becomes unclear. Again, this indicates the need to slow down, get back in touch with what is really important in your life and reconnect with that inner spirit which guides your life forward. So this is where the Ace and the Two connect. And the last one here is wasting time and money in unproductive situations. So you're making you're making plans which just are pie in the sky. With any goal, it must be realistic. So just making a goal that is totally unrealistic is just going to waste time. So these are some of the definitions when the card is reversed. So we're now going to look at the card in detail for the rest of the video. Okay, next we have a quick comparison slide. We've got the Two of Wands from 3 different decks. Here on the left we have Dominion from the Thoth deck, which is what we're going to be looking at in detail. In the middle here we've got the Two of Wands from the Golden Dawn Society, well, esoteric order. This is what Crowley initially belonged to before he essentially branched out and did his own thing with the deck here on the left. And on the right hand side here we've got the Two of Wands from the Rider-Waite deck, where you see a man in his familiar castle. He's got a globe in his right hand, so he's planning his life for when he steps out into the world. We'll briefly touch on the numerology and the geometry of the Two of Wands because it's relevant to the divinatory meanings of the card. For the ace here we had the what was called the monad, meaning one. So this hasn't been divided. It's the pure state of the suit, and it's really relating to inspiration. Getting in touch with what inspires you. So that was the ace. With the Two of Wands we have the duad, which gives rise to duality, and therefore decision making. And we have the development of good decisions and bad decisions because we've got this duality here. So some of the definitions in terms of divination come from this duality which springs from the two, and it's all about the balancing of opposites. So when we see, perhaps more practically in the Rider-Waite card, you see the man holding the globe. That is to do with his making appropriate decisions before he goes out into the world. And it does all relate back to the Two of Wands of the Thoth deck as well. So the divinatory meanings that come from this duality that we've got here, we've said we've got decision making, planning, making appropriate choices. So we've got the possibility of either cooperation between these 2 points or conflict. And this would be our upright meanings, and this would be reversed in the main, although there is a crossover between the two, as you'll see when I go through the card in more detail. We're going to now see how this two relates to the position of the Two of Wands on the Tree of Life in the next section. The position of the Two of Wands on the Tree of Life is here in Hokmar. It's the second Sephiroth. So the energy comes down in this lightning flash here, and the ace resides in Keter, and the twos in Hokmar here. And as I said, the energy flows in this direction down to Malkut here at the bottom. So this Tree of Life here is one of 4. There are said to be 4 worlds. So the wands occupy the first world here, which is Azaluth. Then you've got the other 3 worlds underneath it. So for the second world of creation here we would have the swords, then we'd have the cups, and in the lowest of the 4 worlds here we'd have the suit of discs. So the Two of Wands is in Hokmar of the first world, the world of inspiration, spirituality, that sort of thing. I'm going to take the top 3 Sephira here because there's a name for those, and it's called a supernal triangle. So we have Keter to start with, then Hokmar, and then Binar. So the 2 of Wands is associated with Hokmar. Hokmar means force. So again, we have this idea of force which is apparent in the symbols contained within the card. You've got these thunderbolts here, which we'll have a chat about. So going back to the supernal triangle, we've got Hokmar, which is force, and it's normally represented by the colour grey. Now grey is the blending of blacks and whites, so we've got the idea of the blending of opposites, which again is contained within really all of the 2s of the minor arcana, so you've got this harmony and balance that they're trying to achieve. And Binar here, which is related to the 3 of Wands, and indeed all the 3s. This is the feminine counterpart. And this is shown in the Rider-Waite card by the 3 leaves on the staff. And indeed there looks to be 3 different leaves as well. So this relates to the harmony and balancing between the 2 Sephiroth here and the 2 and the 3 of Wands. So all of the cards are really interconnected, as you can see, because we've got the Ace here. So hopefully this is a bit more clear as to how the minor arcana gel together. So we'll look at the astrology of the card next. In order to see the context of the astrology of the 2 of Wands, we need to look at the decan wheel, which is here. It's a little bit blurred, I know. So we've got the 2 of Wands associated with Mars in Aries. So the decan wheel starts with Aries, then we've got Taurus and Gemini. It follows the zodiac, essentially the sequence of the zodiac signs. So we've got Earth, we've got the air, and the swords here, and then we've got Cancer, which is a water sign, and therefore we have the 2, 3, and 4 of cups here. So perhaps in a little bit more detail here, you can see that the 2 of Wands is associated with what's called the first decan, and 0 to 10 degrees of Aries. Then we've got the 3 of Wands next, and the 4 of Wands occupying the 3rd decan. So the 2 of Wands is Mars in Aries. In Mars, we have the planet of vitality, energy, and assertion. And with Aries, it's very much to do, again, with being a very dynamic star sign. It's to do with exploration, discovering new things. So this is a very forceful combination. And if we put those 2 energies together of Mars and Aries, the card implies that we need to find the energy to move in new directions from a place of balance and harmony, which is the 2, but with confidence and assertion, which is to do with Mars. So all of these again link into the divinatory meaning of the card. In this section, we'll look at the symbolism of the 2 of Wands. So the main feature is the thunderbolt here, and these are called doges, which are Tibetan, and it essentially means thunderbolt or lightning bolt. I've actually got something in crystal here, which is doges made out of quartz. So you can actually get it in crystal form. Some people do actually do it. Going back onto the symbolism of the card, you can see the astrology here, Mars in Aries. We've got this red speckled background here, but you've also got this clear blue showing through. So there are two aspects to this card. On the arrowheads we've got coiled snakes, and they represent the change and disruption caused by the arrowheads here. So in terms of the definition of the card, that's when I said sometimes you have to take a situation by the scruff of the neck, and it may cause a lot of disruption at first. It could be a work situation in which you're going to have to go in and change, and what is actually left behind after that initial disruption, here you can see with the blue sky showing through, you've got the passive element of the card, and that is where the newly found harmony and balance is established. So the clarity is what comes from making a decision and affecting that change. That's what the blue background is here. We've also got 6 flames in the centre here, and that again is significant. The number 6 is associated, again, we go back to the Tree of Life here, and it's associated with the 6th Sephiroth here, which is Tiphereth, which is ruled by the sun. As you can see with this 6th Sephiroth, we've got a centre here in the middle of the Tree of Life, and therefore again it's on the middle pillar in the middle of the actual tree or thereabouts, and this represents stability, harmony and balance, which is associated with the blue of the card here. Also astrologically, the sun is exalted, which means it acts favourably in Aries. So as well as Mars ruling Aries, Aries also gets a benefit from the sun here. So this card becomes a very powerful one indeed for moving our life forward. I think that's about it in terms of the symbolism. The only other thing is that these do look like the heads of horses here, although it's not usually talked about, and I would guess that this is to do with movement and direction. So we'll look at the next section, which is Geomancy. This Geomancy is probably unfamiliar to some, so I'll just briefly explain it. It's Geomancy, and it's really earth divination. Geo meaning earth, and basically pieces of soil or rocks were thrown from the hand, and patterns were then established which had specific divinatory meanings. And the one that Crowley associates with this card is pure, I think that's how you pronounce it, and this again is under the rule of Mars in Aries, and this represents either something like a sword or the erect phallus. So you have a definite male energy associated with this particular card. Pure actually translates from Latin to the meaning the boy, and we've talked about the symbolism here. So relating back to its Mars in Aries root, We can say that it gives a certain amount of aggression and sort of male sexuality, and that's got to be tempered for it to have a positive effect, because if it overrules, then it can be used in very destructive ways, which is what you would expect looking at these. They look pretty fearsome looking and can be quite destructive. Just a brief recap here of the connection between the ace and the 2, because I've talked a fair bit about this. The ace relates to our inspiration, and the 2 refers to planning. So it's very important that we plan our lives and our direction for our future from what inspires us, because if we're acting on things that do not inspire us, we're not going to reach our true potential, and therefore you get the negative divinatory meanings of this card coming into play. So that's that in a nutshell. We'll go on to the very last section, which is back to divination, and we'll see how the 2 of Wands plays out in a Celtic Cross spread. So we have a Celtic Cross spread here. Number 1, the dominant energy of the spread is what I've called it. So if the 2 of Wands appears here, it's really implying the need to take the situation that you have in front of you by the horns. You need to really have a clear picture of where you want your life to go. And this may be an uncomfortable process, because it may mean sorting out some things which you perhaps do not want to face, but this is an important step to getting your life back on track. Card 2, current challenge affecting your issue. It's crossing, in other words, it's obscuring the energy from the 2 of Wands. Not acting on what inspires you could be one of the definitions here. Card 3, subconscious influences. Could mean that you want to have plans for the future, but you're afraid to put them into action, so subconsciously you're putting things off. Maybe, it's a big step. It could be a career thing, it could be a spiritual thing, but it's something subconsciously that's holding you back. Recent past influencing situation here as number 4. It could be that you've had difficult circumstances in the past, but your sort of persistence has paid off. And so you can draw on that strength that you've had this sort of situation previously in order to get through the current situation. Card 5, hopes and goals. Really to follow that which inspires you and to change your current life circumstances. Card 6, your near future. This is the impulse to go for it. It's calling you to overcome any fears and move forward to the next project and adventure. So it's really telling you to go out and create a world that you truly want and that inspires you. And it could mean travel, because we did mention that in the first section when we considered its upright meaning. Card 7 here, your internal self at this time. Again, a lot of these can be a little bit repetitive because they are all interconnected, but this again is to do with being at the stage where you feel that your life needs moving perhaps in a different direction, and you need to get in touch with what exactly it is that you want. Card 8, your external environment. It could mean that your external environment is challenging, competitive, can be quite unsettling. So it's trying to find ways of re-establishing harmony in your life. Card 9, with guidance and warning here. It's really saying that if you are not recognizing that which truly inspires you, you're not on the path to realizing your full potential. So whether these obstacles are internal or external, you need to sort them out, otherwise you are going to stagnate. The final card here, in the 10th position, your overall outcome, basically said that this is to do with aligning with your deepest inspiration, and therefore careful planning to achieve your goals will enable you to realize that you can achieve your dreams, make them into realistic goals, and therefore you've got something to measure your success on. So the difference between a dream and a goal is that a dream is just something that inspires you. It's staying, that's within the ace, but in order to realize that, you need to move away from the ace and actually put something into practice, and this is where the 2 comes in. Okay, so that's the end of this tutorial. I hope you have enjoyed it and it's been of some help. So we move on to the 3 of Wands in the next video. And remember, all these cards are interconnected.